Urban Dictionary. Is this going to be bad?
It's going to be kind of bad.
A common swinging term used in the community to refer to a single female.
It was Facebook present.
No kidding. That's really weird. A unicorn. To me, a unicorn is like, a white horse with a single horn that runs around in the Forbidden Forest, and Voldemort's trying to drink their blood. That's a unicorn.
That's what it used to be.
That's what it used to be. I don't know how that happened. So that's weird. Okay. So we are now at the point where he gives us his propositions. Substance is by nature prior to its modifications. You can't change something unless it exists first. And there's a proof for this. This is clear from definitions 3 and 5. See how that works? It's like algebra, right? Proposition 2. Two substances whose attributes are different have nothing in common. And there's proof for that. Proposition 3. Things which have nothing in common cannot be one the cause of the other. And proof for that. Proposition 4. Two or more distinct things are distinguished one from the other, either by the difference of the attributes of the substances or by the difference of their modifications. And proof for that. And here we notice, by the way, QED. That's just really cool, I think. Proposition 5. There cannot exist in the universe two or more substances having the same nature or attribute, because that would be one thing. They were the same. Well, that would be the same thing. Right? So there can't be two of them. This one is absolutely crazy. One substance cannot be produced by another substance. Well, you have to check that because, of course, all through our history we thought, well, substances were created by something. Right? Well, all of a sudden now we get this, but by your definition of what you mean by substance, it is impossible that there should be in the universe two substances with an identical attribute, which have anything common to them, right? So we've got prior propositions that have been proved that lead to this, and so therefore one cannot be the cause of the other, neither can one be produced by the other. QED, right? And there's corollaries with this. This is fun. Existence belongs to the nature of substances. You feel like saying, well, duh, which I think that comes from Homer Simpson. Actually not. It comes from Wittgenstein. He invented that. Plus the head slap. Duh, right? Wittgenstein invented that. Just prior to Homer Simpson. Right? The dough of, that's considered like the Tao of Homer Simpson, except it's the dough of Homer Simpson. Right? Great philosophical genius, Homer Simpson. You've seen him? Nobody knows who Homer Simpson is?
You gotta show us.
That's too old? My favorite is when Homer, well, I don't know, I would have to, but Homer was on vacation with his family, and they rented an RV and drove out, and they got lost. And so Marge and the girls got off the RV and headed back towards the road to find directions. But Homer and Bart went further into the woods, and then at one point accidentally let the RV roll off of a cliff. So now the two of them are lost in the woods with nothing, right? And at one point then they're trying to figure out, okay, well, we've got to eat something. So Homer creates this little trap. He says, we'll catch a rabbit, right? So he sets up this trap. And he and Bart sit in the bushes and they watch. And sure enough, a rabbit comes, sees the trap, hops right onto it, and it springs. And so the rabbit gets flung. No clue where the heck this rabbit's going to go. I thought that was so hilarious, I almost peed my pants. I didn't, but I mean, still, that was that funny. I just couldn't believe it. However, all right, so now we get to the serious stuff. Proposition 9, the more reality or being a thing has, the greater the number of its attributes. And Proposition 10, each particular attribute of the one substance must be conceived through itself. Proposition 11, God, or substance, consisting of infinite attributes, of which each expresses eternal and infinite essentiality, necessarily exists. So there is his ontological argument, or his version of it. Right? Remember, all of this is based on the scholastic definitions that he's exploring. So this seems absolutely a requirement of scholasticism. God necessarily exists. But what kind of God is that? And notice there's lots of explorations of that. But now, Proposition 12, no attribute of substance can be conceived from which it would follow that substance can be divided. Substance absolutely infinite is indivisible. And therefore, Proposition 14, besides God, no substance can be granted or conceived. Nothing else can exist except God. By the way these definitions have accumulated over the Middle Ages, you put them together and you follow them to the point of which they all seem to lead, you end up with God being the only thing that exists. So God is one, etc. So Proposition 15, whatsoever is in God, and without God nothing can be or be conceived. So what this is considered usually is pantheism. Pan, the Greek word for all, like, right? Pandemonium, everything is full of demons. Pantheism, everything is God. And by the way, this is called a heresy. If you were orthodoxa means the right belief. You realize, well, God as creator has to be other. Because everything is created by God. So God can't be part of nature. Because if God was part of nature, then there isn't anything that created everything else. Because God is already part of nature, right? So pantheism is officially a heresy. Not a problem for Americans. Remember, as Americans, we are all heretics. That's a heretical imperative. Remember, that's I think I showed you the wonderful little book by Peter Berger. Pretty sure I showed you this. Not much of a website for that, but obviously the book is still out there, even though it's pretty old. But remember, Peter Berger points out that just by being an American, where you have the right to decide for yourself what you believe, you are a heretic, because it's a heresy to think you have the right to believe for yourself what you want to believe. That's what heresy is. And so, don't worry about Spinoza being a heretic. We're all heretics in this country, unless you're not quite an American. But you've already pretty demonstrated that to me, because when I asked, if Jesus came to your door, at least if you want to argue with him, that's a good American trait, I think. And if he wants you to leave after selling your stuff, and you say, "I've worked for this stuff. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to keep it and raise my 16 children." No, that was the Catholic in England, Monty Python. Remember, every sperm. Sorry, he actually had 100 or so, I think, didn't he? Silly thing. Couldn't have 100 children, especially when your wife is male. That was Monty Python. That sketch, the character who was playing the wife was actually a male actor from the Monty Python. Not most of the main characters that are female, except for the one in The Life of Brian, were actually male. Even Brian's mother was male, right? That's just silly stuff. That's supposed to be fun. All right, so basically that's the point. That is so significant. So once you get to this, you're left wondering, okay, well, Spinoza, what the heck are you talking about? How can everything be God? What does that mean everything else is? Well, there's modes of existence, so that's kind of interesting. And we get different kinds of modes, and apparently human beings can only be aware of two kinds of modes for Spinoza. The one is our physical senses that we experience, and the other is our mental experience. Now, Descartes was a mind-body dualist, right? And I'm not really that sure about it. I think that this is just me. If you're taking the graduate record exam or something, don't answer this way, because you'll be wrong. But in my own opinion, Descartes really wasn't a mind-body dualist. He probably really thought the body was like a machine, and that the mind is like a machine, and that would put him in the same boat as Hobbes. Remember, Hobbes was, no, everything is just the body. Even our decisions are actually determined by the cause and effect relationships and so on. Descartes thought that the mind was independent of the body, and in fact he drew the place where he thought the two interacted. This is actually drawn by Descartes, this one. And notice he found the pineal gland in the very middle of the brain, and he was convinced that that was the interactive site between the body and the mind. Somehow, a completely physical body had a place in the mind where our soul, or mind, was like the driver of the body. And you end up with this what Gilbert Ryle called the ghost in the machine, and you end up with a funny little thing called a homunculus. Did I spell it right? I'm looking for the homunculus here.
Just look up homunculus.
Just, let's I'm still not getting it. I didn't get rid of.
Just homunculus. Just homunculus.
Really?
Yeah,
Without Descartes? No, there he is. There. So you get this absolutely silly situation where you feel like, well, you've got this little guy sitting in the driver's seat. Remember Ready Player Go? Ready Player One? Where you've got all these, they're in these virtual worlds, but they're imagining themselves driving like a great big robot, and so on. You actually got the guys in the robot somehow. This is obviously not something drawn by Descartes, but you get the idea that we're making